Dave Lawrence, can you hear me?
I can hear you and see you. Aloha, my
Good.
brother. Can you
How
hear and
you
see
doing
me?
today?
You got everything?
Yep. Yes, and you?
Throwing you the shaka, the Hawaii sign for hang loose.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
I'm hanging loose, Dave. Oh, it makes a change from just hearing you on audio.
Yes, yes. It's great to see you and giving you a big hug and a high five. And look at you. You're back in that beautiful place with the exposed wood beams. And it's such a nice, must sound so good.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's like natural,
Yes, it's
you
very
know.
natural. Goes with the Hawaii vibe
But
here.
you live in a pretty natural place too,
We
you know.
there's no question. There's no question about that.
No, it's beautiful there.
And what a great piece of music this. And of course, we haven't. It's not out till June 23rd. But this moment, I've been a Shakti fan since when I was in high school. That was one of the first after Mahavishnu, Intermounting Flame. I guess that was the next thing of yours that I got into, and it was the one that had Natural Elements, I guess. So now it's back, and I guess for folks listening, John, it's the probably, as you probably know how radio works. There's going to be any, and you love public radio, but any number of people don't know anything about what they're hearing, and some people know a little. And so Shakti, first time in 45 years, it fuses Eastern and Western musical traditions, reunites you with percussionist Zakir Hussain. First, just try to, I'll read you what Wikipedia says as the summary of Shakti. But first, for folks who are completely unfamiliar with it, explain a little bit about what Shakti means and how the name in Hindi means creative intelligence, beauty, and power.
Yes. Well, that's one of the kind of how shall I say abstract meanings.
Okay.
Shakti is also the how shall I say the female consort known of Shiva.
Okay.
Very briefly, the in India they don't think of the one inconceivable God that we speak about in the West. It's this kind of three gods. One is the creator, Brahma, and the Vishnu is the sustainer. I'm talking about the universe.
Okay.
It's created, but it's sustained and it's transformed continuously. And Shiva is the transformer. So you have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. But they all have consorts, and the consort of Shiva is Shakti. But Shakti is known, it's the female aspect, but it's always been associated with the creative power, beauty, of course. I think it's probably the most relevant to the arts in Western terms that we could think of. And it's such a nice word too, Shakti, isn't it? It's just got a
Yes,
nice tone to it.
it
Um,
does.
as a I know you mentioned that Natural Elements, which goes back to 1978. That was the last studio album recorded. In between then, we've recorded quite a number of live recordings. I mean, issued them on albums. There were two reasons for this, Dave. One, that we've always lived very far apart from each other, and two, we're very much a live band, if I can put it like that. A live band, insofar as that we really love to play with each other.
Mm.
And somebody asked me about what do you think is the principal characteristic of Shakti? I mean, apart from the fact that it's East meeting West. And I said, to me, it's really the essence of joy, because that's what happens every time we get together. And that aspect, I think it's because, from the beginning, yes, it was great that people like George Harrison introduced the Western, young Western ear to Indian music through the music of Ravi Shankar. But Shakti was something different. There was violin and there was corner call. But I think the exuberance and animation of the band. The thing is, they're all monster players, Dave.
Right, right.
I mean, they're on my case all constantly, you know. So but that's what I love really from the very beginning. Anyway, I love to play with musicians who provoke me in the right sense. Stimulate is maybe a better word. And I'll just end up by saying, in regards to this question, that the idea of Shakti really and truly comes from a meeting I had with Zakir. We might have spoken about this.
No, I've never heard this.
In 1972, the Mahavishnu Orchestra was doing a charity concert in LA, and the beneficiary was the Ali Akbar Khan School of Music, where Zakir was a teacher.
And Ali Akbar Khan, a legendary Indian classical musician.
And he flew down from Northern California and went and came to the show. It was the first time he'd seen the Mahavishnu Orchestra. And he said, you know, Ali Akbar Khan Sahab would love to say hello to you. So the following day, we flew back up to Northern California, San Anselmo, where Ali Akbar Khan Sahab was living. And so I had dinner with him, and what a gracious man, and what a musician. Oh, man. Absolutely out of this world. But we were there. It's a long time ago, Dave.
51 years now?
50, yes, there's 50 years. And you know what they say, young and pretentious. Well, I was. and I had an acoustic guitar with me. Zaki had his tabla, and we kind of like said, well, let's jam, you know, in front of Ali Akbar Khan. I mean, more pretentious, you die.
Right.
But when you're young, who cares? You know, you just go for it. And I have to say that from the 5 seconds in, we never played ever together, Zaki and I. We just sat down, we started playing. It was something I decided to play in 7 for some reason. I don't know, maybe because I like it. Zaki loves all of them also. But within 5 seconds, I'm looking at him saying, this guy is amazing. I was born to play with this guy. And we were, and he felt the same. He felt this like instant connection. And from this, subsequently, I ran into El Shankar, who was studying South Indian violin at Wesleyan University in Connecticut, where I was studying extracurricular South Indian Veena. And we became very friendly, and it was but Zaki and I, we stayed in touch. We knew we had to stay in touch with each other, even though he was teaching and I was touring with the Mahavishnu. We stayed in touch. And at one point, 1973, I called him, I said, can you come over to New York and you know, sit down. I want to introduce you to El Shankar, the violin player.
Wow.
And I asked my guru, the Vienna teacher, Dr. Ramanathan, can I borrow your mridangam player? So I did. So he did, and we got together, and the same irrepressible exuberance came out at the same time. You know, that began with Zakir and I, and here we are, 50 years later, and it's still there. I think it'll be there until I keel over, or one of us keels over, or we all keel over, and so this was really in a nutshell how Shakti started, and I think it's reason for its long life.
I never have heard how, because you always wonder, and that's why that's a great lead-in to Wikipedia's summary of what Shakti is for the legion of people you can imagine who are like, I know who this guy is, I've heard him on the show before, but so here's what Wikipedia says, and then you'll tell me if you think it's a good summary for the general public. The band played acoustic fusion music, which combined Indian music with elements of jazz.
Well, yeah, that sums it up. I mean, at that period, there were three Indians and me. So I'm the jazz man who's crazy about Indian music. The thing is as I'm sure you're well aware, Dave, that there is so much common ground between Indian music and jazz music.
Sure.
For the principal reason is improvisation. The heart and soul of Indian music and jazz music is improvisation, rhythmical improvisation. And so we're not the first to form a jazz, Indo-jazz band. There was even one from a saxophone player, a British saxophone player called Joe Harriott, called the Indo-jazz fusion.
Huh.
I mean, and we're going back to the early '60s here.
Oh,
Dave.
wow.
So yeah, so it's and what about who was the saxophone player?
Did they have a violin in that early 60s one?
No, it was a saxophone, but I was just thinking, who was Zakia recorded with a great saxophone player, and they were even doing ragas. I mean, we're going back also now to the mid to three-quarters of the way through the '60s. Who was that saxophone player? Oh, I wish I could remember. Anyway, I'll get back to you on that.
That's okay.
And here we are today. Yes, since 2000, we have the most amazing singer, Shankar Mahadevan, in the band, which comes from, Shakti had quite a big gap in its life, which happened when Viku Vinakaram's father died. He was the South Indian percussion player, as opposed to Zakir, who was North Indian percussion player. Shakti has always had North Indian and South Indian percussion. Viku's father died in 1978, and who had founded a school, a percussion school in Madras. It was called Madras at that time, Chennai. And Vico had to go back to India to take charge of the school. And this was a really big blow.
Sure.
Because I'd gone over to India in 1975 to find a percussion player, because my guru's Birdangam player was of a next generation above us, and he was not interested in touring. So I went over in the autumn of 75 to find another South Indian percussion player who could replace him. And that's where I found Viku. And so Viku was with us until the mid 78 or the end of 78, and then he had to go back. In the meantime, Shankar was moving. He'd got a record deal, El Shankar. He got a record deal with Frank Zappa on Frank's label. Wow. But he was moving more towards pop. That was his orientation. He wanted to. He was less interested in the musical development of the group than in he was moving towards a different kind of career. And so there was quite a big gap that was filled only once in 1984 when we did a tour of India, the original band, 1984, which was marvelous to do. It was the first time Shakti had been in India, and I had personally the most marvelous experiences from people who were coming to me after the concerts, Indians, playing in India in different cities, and saying, I want to thank you for reminding me about our music, Indian music. But perhaps because of the Western element, because they were listening to the Beatles and the Stones and everybody else, and maybe even Mahavishnu Orchestra. In any event, that was extremely touching. But from that point, Shankar really went off. And so it took until 90, that's a big gap. In the meantime, Zakir and we continued to do recordings. We did a really big TV show in Paris. We had a trio on and off with the great flute player Hari Prasad Chaurasia. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I haven't.
The big bamboo flute player. I mean, amazing. This guy, killer, and on this bamboo flute. But these were kind of sidelines, you know, and Zakir and I, we did different recordings. In any event, we always stayed in touch. We could not stay in touch, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Even though we had quite different careers moving. In 97, we got together because we were invited to do a tour of the UK by the Asian Music Society. So actually, we tried to get everyone together, including El Shankar, but we were unable to. And so we invited, again, Hari Prasad Chaurasia, this marvelous flute player, with Viku. Viku came on the tour, Viku Vinayakram. And we did about 7 or 8 concerts in the UK. At the end of this tour, Zakir and I were sitting down, and I looked at him, I said, we cannot stop now. I cannot. So we have to move again together. And so Hari Prasad Chaurasia, another generation above us, superstar really, much too busy to join the band. And impossible to find El Shankar. However, in the meantime, I'd been introduced to the young U. Srinivas, mandolin player. And I said to Zakir, I said, this young, I saw him when he was 14, and he blew me away at 14. I said, this young man, I said, I think he would be perfect. And yes, he was. And he was until we lost him in 2014 at the young age of 45. But in the meantime, Zakir and I, we knew it. We're really, because of that first experience in 1972, I cannot overestimate the impact that had on me, and probably on Zakir too. Right. We just had to go. And so we got together with Srinivas, and we began again. They called it, for marketing purposes, Remember Shakti, yep. Which maybe people had forgotten. It was quite a few years gap.
Yep.
But already by 1999, I was talking to Zakir. I said, it would be great to have a vocalist in the band, but not your average vocalist, you know, because in India, there's some vocalists just sing songs, and then there are others, like Shankar Mahadevan, who are masterful improvisers. And so he was going to India. He said, I'm going to look and send you some CDs, whatever I find, whoever I find. And about a month later, I got a CD in the post. This would be 1999. And it was this gentleman, Shankar Mahadevan. And I put the CD on the player, and I think it must have been not more than 1 minute later, I was on the phone to him.
Oh, wow.
Because he blew me away. And I knew he was fun. And so we organized, actually, we were in the process of organizing a major tour of India, Zakir and I, with lots of different musicians we hadn't worked with. We ended up with like an 11-piece band touring India. And we invited Shankar Mahadevan to join us on that tour. So this was the first time he really was like Shakti and friends in a way. And right after, I think, the first concert, I said to Zakir, I said, you know, we have to get this guy in the band now. You know, he's too great. Unfortunately, he'd grown up with Shakti, and he's just a follower of Shakti since the very early days. That said, at that particular time, he wasn't so well known. But about 10 years ago, he became one of the kings of Bollywood. I mean, really, it's such a talent and writing songs and music. And when you think that he's done over 200 million copies, and then you see what kind of position he occupies in India. That said, which he tells me every time, he said, no matter what Bollywood is going to do, if Shakti's got something, I'm with Shakti. No. So it's wonderful to have this kind of enthusiasm. And today we have Zakir. We have, in a way, it's part of the family because the son of Viku, Selva Ganesh Vinayakam,
right, is in the band.
Was taught everything by his father. And so that family strain continues. And we could not, Zakir and I, we could not accept the idea of finding another mandolin player. So we found a violin player. Actually, we didn't find him. We've already worked together on a special project 20 years ago. A marvelous player. I'm speaking about Ganesh Rajagopalan. And so we invited him into the group about, would be 3 years ago now. So here we are. He's marvelous. And I'm just thrilled that, because I'm getting up there now, Dave. I'm one of the elders, as they say. Not that I'm going to let any young lion, eat me up. Don't worry. But to have the opportunity to do really what we're saying is world tour, because we already did
India.
India.
Right.
We have Europe coming up in the end of May and June, and part of July, and then we'll be coming to the US. And we don't know what's going to happen. We never know what's going to happen from day to day. But to be able to do this, maybe it is a farewell tour. Maybe it's a farewell from everyone's point of view for Shakti. But to be able to do it really thrills me. I'm thrilled.
Well, you sounded great on the, I was taking a look, there's some video folks can see, video pictures, lots of stuff from the tour of India. There's one great on your Facebook, there's a great photo of, I'm thinking it's the end of the tour, but there's this huge dinner table at some restaurant. It looks like every one of you is all lined up there. And is that a regular thing, or was that like the end of tour sort of celebration? Or do you always dine together on some huge table like that?
Yes, when we can. Those guys love to eat just like me, especially good Indian food, but I know good any food. I mean, most of us are vegetarians, so this Indian food works very well.
Where is aloo gobi on your chart of your favorite Indian dishes? Where is aloo gobi?
Aloo gobi, is that one of yours?
That is probably my very favorite Indian dish. So I'm just curious how it ranks on your list.
It's way up there. Okay. It's up there, Dave. Aloo gobi. I mean, potatoes and cauliflower.
Very good veggie dish.
And the delicious spicy sauce. No, my mouth's watering already.
Okay, just making sure that it was something that we shared. You mentioned the European tour coming up, and that'll come before they hit North America. But on your Facebook, you were noting, kind of reflecting on when you were at that same venue, Hammersmith Apollo, and you were there with Shakti in '76 with Weather Report, Billy Cobham, George Duke Band. And it made me think of like the unusual, because you talk about putting together this unusual band. When it came to the reaction of folks who were maybe at a show like that, perhaps they were more, not that Weather Report was a regular pop band or anything, they were pushing the envelope and a fusion of different elements, but was there ever any kind of resistance, or can you remember when you hit the stage, the reaction of folks? Must have been an unusual thing for you. Plus, you're seated if people have never seen it. So you're seated. It's not like you're standing there getting ready to play with Mahavishnu.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you see the average listener in those days, they would see, they see like a little rising and a carpet, and we come down, we sit down, it's like, well, what's all this? What's all this about? And but the minute we start to play, I mean, they get it. The audience gets it right away. It's irresistible. Something irresistible about it. And this is one of the reasons that Weather Report, Joe Zawinul and Wayne and Jaco, they were hardcore fans of Shakti. And so we toured extensively together.
Yes, you did.
We in America and in Europe. I mean, and then, but don't forget at that time, I don't know if it was really a long time before your time, but the idea of concerts in those days was contrast.
Yeah.
And if you have like a, I mean, Shakti used to play opposite Blue Oyster Cult, a more conflicting concept. But the promoters those days was like, let's expose people to different kinds of music so they can discover something. It was a very different attitude.
Yeah.
The attitude today is, yes, oh, you've got a fusion band, so let's have another fusion band and just market it together. And it was the opposite in those days. It really was.
There's posters of that illustrate exactly what you're talking about. I actually, before talking to you, went online and Googled Shakti Classic Concert Poster and spent some time trying to dig up. And I found an exact example of what you just said. Perhaps the most odd of all bills. You mentioned it to me once years ago, but it was in April of '77. And this illustrates what you were talking about. Starting on April 9th, you did a series of concerts in Germany. I believe they were the Easter concerts or something it was called. Cologne, Nuremberg, a few other cities. And check this lineup out in order of headlining from the top. And I have a copy of the poster. I could send it to you. It starts with Black Sabbath were the headliner. John McLaughlin's Shakti underneath. The Ian Gillan Band, and that's the singer from Deep Purple. AC/DC, Doctors of Madness, and Caravan, all on one bill, but you guys right before Sabbath. What can you remember of that?
It's really, I remember it very well. And we were a little nervous, with these heavy metal bands. The thing is, we would go and we would get up on our little riser and sit down. But the beat would start, and we'd have these guys, because there would be sometimes in these arenas, no seats, where the people are standing up, and there'd be these, and after a minute, these like this long-haired, deep into heavy metal, but they'd be like,
getting it.
They'd be in it.
Totally.
They were in it, and this. We were really, I don't know, gobsmacked. Can you say to see this? I mean, but in a very heartwarming way.
Sure.
Because when you see these heavy metal dudes, just with the, almost banging their heads on the stage because they're into the rhythm. I mean, it was wonderful. So there never was any kind of conflict between any of the bands or any of the audiences, because it's like, hey, whatever,
contrast, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, if it was rocking, it was rocking. and Shakti's rocking. Those two hit the beat. I mean, it's irresistible.
No, no question. And there's a lot of like incredible climactic improvisation that would go back and forth between the guitar and violin, stuff that rock fans could very easily grasp onto. I was also curious, like Sabbath's guitar player is a pretty innovative guy, Tony Iommi, with the kind of sound that he sort of started. Did you have any interaction with the Sabbath guys, and also do you have any reaction to him as a player, considering your own legacy?
No, I couldn't say I couldn't say I do. Or I couldn't say I did. Simply, when you're in this kind of festival thing, I mean, the team comes on and they scoop you off.
Right.
You're off, and the stage is cleared in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Because they got to set the stage as quickly as possible for the next band.
Okay.
I mean, occasionally, but this was very rare, where you had 2 stages, where then things were easier. But no, I was, they shuffled us out, and so we were there. So I never got to meet any of them.
Wow.
The tours we did with Weather Report, and also on the George Duke Billy Cobham band, these were, but mainly Weather Report. These was where we really got to hang out, because they were not a festival. It was a concert.
Right.
Shakti opened up to Weather Report. They'd be on the side of the stage for our show. But then we'd be on the side of the stage for their show.
Sure.
Because I mean, apart from the thing, I met Joe in '69, Wayne in '69. At the In a Silent Way recordings of Miles. Yeah. They were both on that. And then Jaco, who, when he drove up to New York looking for a gig, he found me at SIR Studios, and I loved Jaco for a number of reasons. One, he was what a player, but he walked in the studio, and we looked up and we said, yeah, can we help? He said, my name's Jaco Pastorius. I'm the greatest bass player in the world. I said, I like the way you talk. and so we ended up, he said, yeah, let's, can we jam? I said, well, we're busy rehearsing here, and I've got a great bass player, Ralph Armstrong,
right,
out of Detroit. Wonderful player. But we played, and I was astounded. I was really astounded. And in fact, that evening, I got back home, and I called Tony Williams, and I said, Tony, if you're looking for a bass player, try this guy, try Jaco. And I think he did. I think he did some gigs with him, but I think through that, Joe got to know him.
Right.
And I know Joe pulled a fast one on Alfonso Johnson, because Joe saw the dynamic of Jaco and what he could do to Weather Report, which he did. And I know he fired Alonso the same day from Weather Report. I think that's cold. But Joe, he couldn't resist Jaco.
Right.
He couldn't resist Jaco. But I heard a very touching description from Wayne about Jaco.
Wayne Shorter, he's talking about.
Wayne Shorter, yes. And, somebody was asking Wayne about Jaco, and he said, Jaco was the 747 without the undercarriage.
Wow.
What an image.
That's a great description for that kind of cat. There's another cat who sort of said those kinds of things about you. And he's a guy, people can find his little quotes. There's also some great video of you and this guy on stage together where he gets down on his knees and bows in front of you. He's called you the greatest guitarist in the world. And this guy revered around the world, revered you so much. You're going to be doing that all-star event in his honor coming up real soon at Royal Albert Hall. Jeff Beck, take me back. When was the first time that you can remember meeting this guy, seeing him, the way that he reveres you? How did you guys connect?
We connected would be 1974, and I knew of Jeff because he used to be in the Yardbirds, I believe, at one point. Like a lot of guitar players, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton.
Yep.
They were there. He's part of a long tradition of great guitar players. And a tour was organized between. I had the second Mahavishnu band was a big one because I had a string quartet and I had some horns. That was a precursor to the work I did with the London Symphony Orchestra, the Apocalypse recording. Yeah, I was very much part of that, of the orchestration, but over time, I felt overloaded by it, and so by the time I was invited to do this tour with Jeff, it was a quartet with Ralph Armstrong on bass, narrator Michael Walden was playing drums, wonderful drummer, and Stu Goldberg playing Hammond organ, and so this is where we really met, actually, on the beginning of this tour. So we started this tour, and Jeff was already ripping it up. I mean, Jeff was something. Yeah, I don't know if you ever seen him live.
Oh, yeah, many times.
Oh, he was something. He was. And I had, at that time, I had a double neck that been made for me by
it's an SG, right?
Pardon me?
It was an SG, like a giant Gibson SG?
No, it was a custom made, and it was the one that Ibanez, I think, copied. It had with the Tree of Life on both necks. In any event, we were in the dressing room somewhere in Middle America, and that guitar was on a table. There must have been some kind of tremor because nobody was near the guitar, but all of a sudden it fell off the table, which to this day, I have no idea how it's possible, humanly possible. What happened though, it fell on his face, the body was split, and the bridges were driven into the wood. No, it was a catastrophe. Jeff, at this time, he was playing Gibson Les Pauls, and he loaned me a Les Paul so I could finish the tour. But the thing is, already by the third night of the tour, we decided to do 2 shorter sets each, and then do a long set at the end. 2 guitars, 2 basses, 2 drummers, 2 keyboards. Yeah, I mean, nuts. But we had a ball. I mean, it was outrageous. And so finally, we did the rest of the tour. We were on the road for a few weeks. And at the end, we become very, very dear friends. And I just wanted to show him and thank you. And so just at the very end of the tour, I'd found a 68 white Strat that I gave him at the end of the tour, and I was very happy to note that from that point on, he played only the white Strat. No, it was really very touching.
That's huge.
and then subsequently yeah, I mean, he came on one of my recordings, but I know we did a big jam together on one of his shows, and we did another show together here in Monte Carlo for charity, um, and we met also. I mean, he would come to see me in different concerts, and I would come to see him in his concerts. I really miss him. In fact, there's a lot of people going to miss him because, in 2 weeks, on the 22nd and 23rd, the 2 nights at the Royal Albert Hall in London,
Yeah.
a memorial concert. And good old Eric has got his team organizing everything, and there's a lot of guitar players. I think it's going to be like a mini Crossroads.
Yeah. All right.
So and I'm going to be playing with Jeff's band.
Man.
And Eric's going to have his band there, and there's Billy Gibbons coming from there. I mean, even Johnny Depp's going to be there, but Johnny was there at the memorial. I mean, actually, Johnny had a lovely, lovely, tender story that he in his eulogy at the memorial of Jeff, and how Jeff and his wife Sandra kind of saved him. Johnny had been through the mangle with this what's her name,
Amber Heard.
Yes, exactly. He was kind of followed all around by the paparazzi. It just became quite, and he was flipping out, and he went to see Jeff in I think it was in California, and Jeff just out of the blue said, "Listen, why don't you come and stay with us? You just stay with us." Because he had a very nice house in the English countryside, and Johnny said, "I accept." And he went and he stayed there for I think probably about 6 weeks or 7 weeks,
Wow.
and got himself together, thanks to the lovely atmosphere and affection of Jeff and his wife Sandra. And he gave the most tender eulogy at Jeff's memorial. And so he's going to be there. I mean, he loves guitar. I know when I ran into him at the first time at the memorial, and he says, "Oh, John, man, I remember you, man. When I came, I was at the University of Florida, Miami, man. You were playing there with Mahavishnu. I was like 18, and so
Johnny Depp. Wow.
That was very sweet. That was really sweet of him. So
Wow.
so he'll be there, but a lot of guitar players. So we'll all do homage to Jeff. Sure, they'll record it. They'll probably make some kind of audio visual.
I have no doubt. And folks can go, if you go on YouTube, the footage to see the great Jeff Beck bowing before you at I think it was Royal Albert Hall, actually, where you guys had done that one that's a real easy to find video. And before I wrap it up with you, because you've been very, very generous, we mentioned his name a couple times, and it's ironic because you also mentioned the Crossroads Fest. You kind of called the Jeff Beck tribute kind of like a mini Crossroads, and you're also it's not your first time doing that either. You're gonna be doing Eric Clapton's Crossroads concert. He does this, it's a festival he calls it, and he raises money for his drug rehab, which is in the Caribbean. And kind of like Jeff, you sound real familiar with him when you talk about him. How far back do you go with Clapton? Is he, how did you first have him enter your life?
With Eric, even longer. I think we met when he was with
before Cream?
John Mayall and the Blues Breakers.
Okay.
This would be 63, 64.
Right, wrong back.
And a couple of old hippies here, Dave. Yeah, basically there were two clubs in London. One was more of an R&B club where I was playing with Georgie Fame and the Blue Flames. And there was the 100 Club, which was more of a blues club. The thing is, but since they were about, 5 minutes walk from each other, and of course there was the iconic Alexis Corner. You ever heard of Alexis
Yeah,
Corner?
yeah, famous.
This iconic personality who was just, I mean, really hardcore blues player, singer, but he loved to have jazz men in his band. So everybody ended up in his band. We all played at some point with Alexis. I mean, the Stones, Mick was a singer. I think, who's the drummer? The drummer from the Stones.
Charlie Watts.
Yep, he was there. Cyril Davies, the blues harmonica player. Long John Baldry, he was another singer in there. But that's where I met Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker and Graham Bond. And we, out of that meeting with Alexis, we formed Graham did, the Graham Bond organization with Jack and Ginger. That was a wild quartet too. But they went on with Eric to
Cream.
you know, because I think Alexis Corner was responsible for all of these meetings together, because
linking these artists.
Yeah, exactly. And I was very happy for Jack and Ginger when they did Cream. I mean, because Cream took off big time, and Eric was soaring.
Totally.
He was playing. I mean, and that band, I mean, they were doing like long jams, but he was really, in fact, I think it's my opinion that because it was kind of just before Jimmy came to the UK, and Eric was playing. I think he had quite an impact on Jimmy.
Sure.
Actually, at that time, yeah, it's my firm feeling that, I mean, very positive too. He had a very positive impact on Jimmy, and Jimmy, of course, then took it to another, you know, where Jimmy went. Jimmy went where no man had gone before.
Totally. You never played with Cream, huh? You never got up there and when was the first time you played with Clapton?
With Clapton?
Yeah, when was the first time you actually played together?
Oh, probably. I think the first jam we ever had together would be 1971, something like this, with Carlos. Somewhere I think we were in Huntington, New York, somewhere.
Wow.
And it was just a big jam session going on. Yeah, really cool.
Unbelievable. Really nice. When you think of the longevity of these guys, you know what's funny is earlier this year we had Ozzy Osbourne on, and his latest record has Eric Clapton and the late Jeff Beck, and he had #1 hits with both of them. And you think about Eric Clapton back on the radio in 2022 with a #1 rock hit with Ozzy Osbourne, and you talk about it's unbelievable. We were talking about that's 50 cent. That they say when you mentioned 71, it just kind of gives me chills. The longevity.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, I've got to hand it to Eric, because Eric introduced me to Dwayne Allman. Wow. Who is another killer. I mean, you know, because that's Dwayne playing on the original Layla.
Yeah, on Derek and the Dominoes, right?
And Eric introduced me to Derek Trucks, another blues player.
Wow, so
I'm sure Derek will be there in London.
Yeah, he will. He and his wife Susan Tedeschi will definitely be there.
Yeah, they're both coming.
Wow,
yeah.
So Eric has had a very formative. That's cool. Some of the people he's introduced you to. Well, lots of fun today, but one final question, I guess, before we go, that this leads to. Based on the photos of you at home these days, folks can see on your Facebook page, who takes care of that adorable dog when you're out circling the globe? I don't think that fuzzy creature comes with you.
My lovely wife. Yeah, he is adorable, isn't he?
What's the name of that dog?
Chico.
Chico, right. And what kind of dog is that?
Is an Australian Shepherd.
So fuzzy and soft and cuddly looking.
No, he's so affectionate. Oh, he's beautiful. But he ran away. He ran away one time when we were not here. He was with a very dear friend. We lost him for 5 days and 4 nights in the forest.
Whoa.
In the forest. But we found him.
And you don't let him out of your sight now, right?
No, he's got the GPS on his neck. Yeah.
I love it.
Anyway, it's real nice to talk to you. It always is, Dave. It's a real pleasure.
I really
Too
appreciate
bad we're
it.
not going to be playing Hawaii. I would drop by and see you.
I wish, but I appreciate your time, your great storytelling. I'm giving you a big hug, big high five. I hope you feel them.
too. Yeah, you too, brother. You
And
too.
thank you so much. God bless
Yeah.
you.
God bless you too. Hang in there, brother.
Take care, John. Aloha.
Thanks, Dave. Bye.